Welcome to the Palace Theatre here in Pigeon for the At Home Aging Well Festival. We've got a fantastic speaker coming up for you now. Many of you already know her, she's been at the festival before, but there's going to be a few surprises in this one. I'd just like to introduce to you Her Majesty, Brenda Loosemore.
Yes, it's Brenda Loosemore dressed as the Queen. Now you may wonder why I am dressed as the Queen. Well, it all started with Lupton House. I'm sure most of you know Lupton House, which of course used to be the home of Lord Churston. Well, they were running a weekend, sort of reenactment of World War II weekend, and I was asked if I would dress up as the Queen, and I said, oh yes, I can do that. I mean, as those of you who know me, of course I do a lot of amdrams, and so I've got a wardrobe of the most bizarre sort of clothes. So I managed to find an outfit, and I dressed up as the Queen on the reenactment weekend. Well, I thought this was wonderful, because I was a volunteer, and everybody was taking photographs. I thought it was most strange, really, because I thought, what are they going to do with loads of photographs of Brenda Loosemore dressed as the Queen? But anyway, there we are. So I was very happy to have my photograph taken, and the ladies curtsied, which was very nice of them, and of course all the gentlemen were in their World War II uniforms. Well, of course I shouldn't really be the Queen Mother, but I didn't actually have a Queen Mother outfit, so I had to do the best I could. So here I am. Now the lady at Lupton who's in charge there is called Janet, and she very kindly provided me with a corgi. And here he is. I've called him Prince. I thought that would be quite suitable. So I decided there was a bit of a future of me dressing as the Queen, and sure enough, it's turned out. They invited me back for another weekend, and I did that. I had to open a fashion show, so I did that. Then a WI invited me to their centenary lunch, and so I had to sit having my lunch dressed as the Queen and wondering, does she take her gloves off to eat? I wasn't quite sure, so, I decided I would take my gloves off to eat, but it was like being in a parallel universe. Anyway, so I have dressed up as the Queen at various other things. Of course, another of my little, part-time jobs, as you know, is murder mystery. So the boss of Moonstone, who is the company I work for, he wrote a murder mystery, a royal one, and asked me if I would be in the murder mystery dressed as the Queen. Now, funnily enough, I wasn't the murderer. Well, I thought that was fair enough. So I thought, well, perhaps I could do a talk called By Royal Appointment with one or two bits and pieces about the Queen that we know, or sometimes we don't know. And what have I got in common with the Queen? Well, only a couple of things, really. One is, did you know that her name, her private eye name, is actually Brenda? I know, Prince Philip evidently is Keith, or Kevin. One of the two, anyway. And so the only other thing I could think of is the fact that I've only been bitten by 2 dogs in my lifetime. And guess what sort of dogs they were? Yeah, both of them corgis. The Queen has had over 30 corgis in her lifetime, and she's unfortunately only got 2 left, and they're not actually corgis. I believe they're dorgies, which is a cross between corgis and dachshunds. something to do with Princess Margaret's dachshunds who escaped one day and were up to no good, and anyway, so that's the result. So the Queen actually has 2 doggies left, which she's just taken. I was reading this only yesterday. She's just taken up to Balmoral. Yes, she's self-isolating in Balmoral with 22 staff. Well, it's the way to live, isn't it, if you're Queen? I read up a couple of little stories about the Queen, which I can share with you. One, she was actually walking around the estate in Balmoral, and a group of people were walking the other way, and they were American, and one of them said, "Gee, do you know you look just like the Queen?" And she replied, "How reassuring," and walked on. And then at another event, as at the palace, Buckingham Palace, during a garden party, she just got to one of the guests and his mobile phone went off. And she said, "I think you should answer that. It might be somebody important." So there we are. There is a book actually called, wouldn't you know, The Wit of Queen Elizabeth II. Evidently she has got a lovely sense of humour, because we don't actually see it, because she's never actually done an interview. The only other time I saw her on television was when she was talking with David Attenborough, and they were walking around and looking at trees and things, and you did get a little glimpse of that sense of humour, which I thought was lovely. I think she's marvellous. I mean, for a start, she is 94. I know, I look quite young for 94, I thought. But, I've got a few years yet to go, but she's 94. And Prince Philip is 99, and he's still upright like a ramrod. I mean, I admire them both hugely. And of course, I've only just recently got Netflix, so I can watch The Crown. I mean, that's lovely. Oh, I'm having a lovely time with that. How good is that? How did they make that? It must have cost a fortune, but I'm really, into that. So, what other things do we know about the Queen? Well, of course, I go out and speak, dressed like this, to the WIs in the area. And did you know that the Queen was president of the Sandringham WI? She's been president for donkey's years. I had this mental picture, imagine being a speaker, a WI speaker invited to the Sandringham WI, and you look down and there's the Queen sat in the front row. A bit daunting, I think, but anyway, there we are. She also has 2 birthdays. Now, not many people have 2 birthdays, but she has her proper one in April, and then she has a second one in June, which, I mean, is very lovely. The other thing about the Queen is she doesn't have to have a driving licence, and she's still driving. Unlike Prince Philip, unfortunately, had to hand his in, as we know. But the Queen is still driving, and the Queen is still riding. Every morning she goes riding. Have a mental picture of how do they get her on the horse. But anyway, there we are. What else do we know? Oh, she's president and, in charge of all sorts of things. But I rather fancy the one where she is the patron of the Royal Pigeon Racing Association. It's interesting, isn't it? Never thought of her as a pigeon racer. But there we are. She likes racing, of course, as we know, horse racing, and she must have been so sad to miss the horse racing this year, because, of course, it's not the same, is it? Ascot and all that, and the Derby with nobody there, but, So, I'm sure she's been watching it on television. Oh, talking of which, I have heard that she rather likes Pointless. And she watches Pointless every day, and she has her cup of tea and a piece of her favourite cake. Her favourite cake is honey sponge cake, so I've been told. I've got it written down here. Gin and Dubonnet is her favourite drink. And also well, of course we know this now, she is the longest serving monarch. I looked it up today to see just how many years it was, and it is 68. Isn't that amazing? Do you know that 4/5 of our population weren't even alive when she became queen? That's quite staggering, isn't it? But of course, 68 years is a very long time. So, what else do we know? Oh, she likes watching Downton Abbey. I've got that down here. And she has met 13 prime ministers, 13 American presidents, including Mr. Trump. I don't know if you saw that when he came over. He sort of lost her because he's very tall and she's very short. And she was stood behind him and he looked round to see and thought she'd disappeared, but she popped out. And she is the oldest monarch to have celebrated her Golden Jubilee and her Diamond Jubilee. So she doesn't need a passport to travel. That's another thing which I thought was quite interesting. So she can go anywhere because passports are actually issued in her name. So she doesn't need one. I also rather like picking out things from papers. If I see little poems of things that I like, I actually pick them out and I file them away. So I've got one or two that I found in papers. One is Pussycat, Pussycat, where have you been? I've been up to London to see the Queen. Pussycat, Pussycat, what did you there? I frightened the corgis under her chair. Pussycat, Pussycat, what did you next? The Queen wouldn't see me, so I sent her a text. Then, of course, I found another little one. Prince Philip may sometimes have lacked a bit of discretion and tact, but he and the Queen have certainly been the world's #1 double act. I thought that was nice. And then I found this one, which is called A Nursery Rhyme for Our Time. Oh dear, the Queen wonders sadly why some younger royals are behaving quite badly. If only they'd listened, she'd give advice gladly each time they've slagged off in the press. The public aren't pleased with the Sussex's lifestyle, travelling around in private jets. Meanwhile, Prince Andrew's connected to an infamous paedophile. Oh, what a right royal mess. By contrast, the Queen never puts a foot wrong. How lucky we are to have her so long. Through good times and bad, she has stood staunch and strong, ever since she was that young princess. So, I always cut out little bits from newspapers, even before I did these sort of presentations, and I have a file at home. So every time I start a new presentation, I go to the file and find something that's relevant. As you know, I've acted many times on this stage in various plays, and also up at the Little Theatre for Toads. And there I met a very lovely lady called Di Davis, who was actually a professional actress all her working life, and she played Mrs. Bates in, not EastEnders, what's the other one? Something about farms, or I can't remember what it was called because I never watched any of those. And she did actually appear in early days of the Coronation Street, and of course she knew all the old stars, and so she could tell a wonderful tale. And when I said to her, "Oh, Di, you should go out and give talks. It's, people would be really interested to hear the stories you have." And she looked at me and she said, "Oh, no, I couldn't do that." Isn't it surprising? Oh, and the other person who has moved to Torquay, I don't know if you realise this, is our new Miss Marple. Julia Mckenzie lives in Torquay. Now, she has been spotted in Waitrose, which is a bit of a pity now because it's closed down. It's now Lidl's. I'm not sure whether, Julia Mckenzie will make that. However, she has been spotted around the area and has been asked to give talks. She again said, no, I don't do that sort of thing. I think it's quite fascinating. Well, I've been doing this sort of thing now for about 10 years. And it came to me as in later life, really, because of course I was already retired. So I am one of the aging well people. In fact, when a young lady asked me first to do a talk for the Aging Well Festival, she said to me, "I'd like you to do it because you're a living example of aging positively." I said, "Well, isn't that lovely? Better than positively aging anyway." So I'm delighted to be able to join with you and to share some of my pieces about the Queen. And long may she reign, because obviously her mother lived till she was 102, so let's hope she's got a few years yet.
Well, thank you very much indeed, Her Majesty Brenda Loosemore.
Thank you.